Of course, we know that from the outset, the Confederacy of Independent Systems was never going to win the Clone War. The war was always part of a larger Sith plan that would see the Separatists be defeated, as the Republic was transformed into an empire ruled by the Sith. As part of this larger Sith scheme, the Separatists were never meant to emerge from the Clone War victoriously. In addition to that, the Separatists were at a major disadvantage from the outset of the war as well. Generally speaking, the Separatists were the much smaller power relative to the Republic. Not only did they not control substantial holdings of territory outright, but the Confederacy didn't have the resources or strategy to fight a major galaxy-wide conflict. But despite the grand plan of the Sith and their underdog status relative to the Republic, it didn't mean that the Separatists simply stumbled into the war without a plan, or with a feeling that victory was impossible. Fortunately for the Confederacy, many of the weaknesses that the Separatists had at the beginning of the war were shared by the Republic. They therefore developed a strategy that would take advantage of these early realities they found themselves in, that would not only allow them to put up a fight against the Republic, but to defeat them and emerge from the Clone War as the dominant power in the galaxy. In this video expose, I will describe how the Separatists plan to win the Clone Wars, focusing on their strategy in the first year of the war, and explain why this strategy provided them with a number of early successes against the Republic. First, it should be mentioned that in the opening months of the war, the Separatists pursued a strategy that was entirely defensive. Despite the scale of the first battle of the war at Geonosis, the Separatists were in no way capable of confronting the Republic throughout the galaxy, openly challenging the key worlds of the Republic for control. Therefore, the focus of the Separatists in the early months of the war was to prevent the Republic from driving into their patchwork of territories, as they scrambled to build up the resources and strategy necessary to challenge the Republic in a major galactic war. Fortunately for the Separatists, they greatly benefited in this regard. The Republic was similarly unprepared to challenge them militarily in any meaningful way at the outset of the conflict. After these initial defensive-focused months, the Separatists did ultimately develop the strategy they would rely and place their hopes upon in the first phase of the war, a strategy they hoped would propel them to victory. This strategy was known as the stateless strategy and would dominate the military goals of the Separatists in the first year of the Clone War. The stateless strategy was one that relied heavily upon decentralization and the vast openness of space. It wasn't completely invented by the Separatists in response to the Clone War, and had been used throughout galactic history to provide a smaller power with an advantage against a larger and superior military. Because the Confederacy didn't have an established homeworld analogous to Coruscant for the Republic and benefited from a decentralization of their power, the Separatists could rely upon the vastness of space to avoid open confrontation with the Republic military. Further, because there was no clearly defined Separatist homeworld, the Republic was forced to have to overcome them everywhere before they could truly be defeated. This was an extremely difficult, if not impossible task for the Republic in the opening stages of the war, as they too lacked the military resources to cover large areas of the galaxy. These advantages provided to the Separatists through their stateless strategy were significant disadvantages to the Republic. Because the Republic was a centralized power with an established capital and defined hubs of economic and military power, the Separatists could utilize their stateless strategy to decide when and where they would attack the Republic. And this is exactly what the Separatists did. Because the Republic couldn't come close to defending every important world within their territory, the Separatists deployed their stateless strategy to great success in the opening stages of the war. Their first offensive actions weren't large-scale assaults on Republic worlds or military targets, but rather surgical strikes and terror operations perfectly in line with their stateless strategy. These operations were meant to specifically deny the Republic the opportunity to establish invasion corridors into Confederacy territory, undermine and sever Republic supply lines, and diminish support for the war among the citizens of the Republic. Again, because the stateless strategy allowed the Separatists to choose its battles and strikes where the Republic wasn't, these actions were immensely successful. In the opening months of the war, the Separatists rapidly secured key hyperspace nodes along the Ruma trade route and Corellian trade spine. These would be utilized later in the war to push into the core and other important Republic sections of the galaxy. Other successes included the acquisition of 200 agricultural worlds, hyperspace routes to Camino that provided access to the most important military target of the Republic, the Lahara sector that connected the territories of the Separatists from Moonalis to the Outer Hydian, and numerous alien homeworlds that bolstered the holdings of the Confederacy. Finally, and arguably the most important acquisition, a corridor to the Mid-Rim industrial worlds located in the northern slice section of the galaxy. These worlds would go on to form the backbone of the Separatists' industrial capacity, eventually becoming known as the Foundry of the Confederacy. The success of these small-scale raids can be directly attributed to the stateless strategy deployed by the Separatists. Not only was the Republic firmly placed upon the defensive, but the acquisitions made by the Confederacy allowed them to more easily fight the next stages of the war, eventually allowing Grievous to invade the core itself. In addition to these acquisitions, the stateless strategy also allowed the Separatists to build up their military forces, as their factories were producing numerous warships and battle droids during this entire time. Of course, we have to recognize the interventions and machinations of the Sith in these successes gained by the Separatists. But we should also recognize the enormous success of the stateless strategy. To be fair, the Republic never truly developed an adequate solution to the Separatist strategy. Rather, the Republic simply outgrew it. Developed alongside Darth Sidis's ultimate plan to produce an enormous military, allowing him to impose the will of the Empire by force, the Republic was eventually able to bring their own industrial capacity to bear against the Separatists. They massively built up their own military forces, allowing them to begin to grind down the Separatist war machine, pushing them back to the Outer Rim in disarray and initiating the final stage of the war. But nonetheless, in the early stages of the war, the stateless strategy adopted by the Separatists gave them a legitimate chance against the much larger and superior Republic military, wherein their small-scale raids contributed to a number of early successes for the Confederacy. This strategy would serve as a blueprint for the rebellion in their civil war against the Empire. So there we have it, how the Separatists planned to win the Clone War. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions? Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. Or perhaps follow us on Twitter at SW Reading Club for updates regarding the channel. Or support the channel through Patreon for access to exclusive hangouts and book discussions. If not for me... for strategy!